Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Cybersecurity Tuesday with Null 404. Today we're going to have BarrySploit walking through our first ever CTF that we did 2 weeks ago. Super excited to see everything. But before we get started, I'd like to thank ArcLight 6 Consulting, who was our sponsor for our CTF and a sponsor of Null 404. They kindly provided a wonderful $500 TCM voucher to the winner of this last CTF and will continue to do so in the future, which is super awesome of them. So thank you, ArcLight 6. And over to you, Barry. Tell us all about this CTF.
Whoop whoop. Yeah, so thanks, John. So we did our first digital forensics and incident response DFIR CTF. Congrats to Jacob, who seems to be here today. They knocked out the whole scenario in just about an hour, which is absolutely ridiculous. So, yeah, dude's on demon time. But I kind of want to make it a general conversation about basically the scenario as a whole, given that tried to mimic it off of some of the things that we see in the real world that threat actors are doing regularly. So the red team playbook that we used for this was inspired off of a Chinese threat actor called Volt Typhoon. We didn't use the exact TTPs that they have or that they use, basically mostly for simplicity's sake for the CTF. And we didn't do any anti-forensic stuff, so there was no really clearing of event logs. I think there was one host where the security event logs didn't work. I think an ETW bypass got used on accident. And thank you all for everybody who put in feedback as well. Really, really appreciate that. So kind of high-level overview of the kind of attack cycle. So initial access was a malicious Word document was delivered. Kevin got phished. Boo him, right? The malicious documents downloads a zip that it then extracts. It's in this C user's public directory, which is a commonplace because it's world writable by everybody on the system. And it automatically sets up some scheduled tasks. So there was some automation that goes along with that. Funny enough, we actually we used a cool custom C2 kind of reverse shell for this. That's what all of those reverse engineering malware category questions were about, was going through deobfuscating that, because that's what threat actors do to get through static detection. So yeah, they changed things up. Once we had a shell on that Python C2, we ran basically this short little one-liner for running a Empire C2. So PowerShell Empire, it uses a lot of Python and PowerShell. And basically this is just saying, hey, we're going to go out to this URL. We're going to take whatever the content is, and we're going to execute it. This IEX, if you're not familiar, is invoke expression. So this basically just says, yep, take this and pipe it into execute, right? Once we had that initial shell in Empire, we set our persistence. That was on that workstation 02. There's a couple questions about that one. Where we set registry persistence. So it was in the user's into-user.dat file. Basically, there's a run key in the registry. Just kind of shorten it, call it the run key because it's got a really long path. But in there was a value called updater, and it ran this same malicious PowerShell. The other thing was that we set a scheduled task, and that scheduled task was called MS Security Updates. And we did that using built-in executable, so living off the LAN binary. It's schtasks.exe. So just simple little one-liner with that. Once persistence was set, did a bunch of enumeration, because imagine you're a threat actor, you get into this environment, you know nothing about it. Are you even part of a domain? What permissions do you have? What type of host are you on? Are you on a server, workstation, etc.? You have no idea. So ran a bunch of commands. We actually pulled this straight out of the Volt Typhoon playbook. Basically saying who am I all, that gives you what groups you're a part of, permissions, etc. Net local group administrators, this tells you what users are in that local administrators group. A couple NL test commands to see if there's any domain trusts, what your domain controllers are, And then also net group domain admins, getting who's in that domain admins group, getting the local keys that are saved there. And this is actually a cool little one-liner that's seen in the wild that looks for any services that are running on the host that are not a built-in, C window. It's not running out of C windows. So basically looking for those local privesc or privilege escalation with this little PowerShell one-liner. A couple other things. There's a suite of PowerShell, basically commandlets and functions you can run called PowerView. So we used a couple of functions out of there. It's built into Empire, so it's fairly easy for us. But get domain computer gave us a list of all the computers in the domain, and then there was also find domain shares. So this was looking across the environment for any kind of network file shares. Any questions so far? I'm going to kind of run through this as like high level, and then I'll go into some of the questions. And if there's anything specific on the questions that we want to work through together, I have all the triages pulled up so we can go through that. But any questions kind of on the red team side so far? So once we did a bunch of enumeration, you need to start moving throughout the domain, moving to other hosts in the environment, right? Moving towards that, getting all that cool sensitive information. We're not domain admin yet. So basically what we had done from a blue team side was we set up this service account called service.null. We gave it a pretty weak password. And then we gave it this SPN, it stands for service principal name. Basically, that's how you contact a service. That's what makes this a service account, is that we are able to request service tickets for that account. Basically, this account would be associated with like a web server or, maybe like a file share or something like that, some internal application. But basically, we did Kerberoasting, which gathers a service ticket for this specific account. And that service ticket is encrypted by the service account's password, or the hash of that service account's password. So basically, super, super easy. Once we had that ticket, or we requested that service ticket, using this nice little one-liner here, uses PowerSharp pack, pulls it off of GitHub. But we just saved that hash into hash.txt, and you can see John cracked that thing in seconds. Because the password was super simple. Null01. Yeah. Thanks, John. So yeah, super easy. So make sure your service accounts have good passwords. Yep. Once we had this service account was part of that domain admins group. So all we needed to do at that point was start laterally moving through the environment. So we used SMB exec. It's actually originally part of the Impacket tool suite. If you've taken OSCP, things of that nature, you'll get pretty familiar with it. But it's basically a bunch of different ways to send very specifically crafted packets over the network. So in this case, what we did was using some named pipes and using the SMB protocol, we created a service. It's a random 20-character named service on all the different hosts in the environment. So we would run SMB exec, starts that service that runs our malicious PowerShell and connects back to Empire. And then once we were on there, Empire has a really nice GUI to just be able to click through and view all the file browser, like view all the files on the system. So there's nothing really special, no ls commands. You're not going to see any evidence really of that. You might see something in like the USN journal, but it's not like I catted a lot of the files, so not a whole lot of evidence there. Once we had the shell on a couple of the different hosts, there was the Servo1 that was hosting a share. And so once we were on there, ran a quick little PowerShell one-liner to compress the share down into loot.zip. So you would have seen this in those process creation events because we're spawning PowerShell here with this specific command. And then once I had everything zipped up, went ahead and pulled down. I used an S3 bucket from AWS for a lot of this. It's basically just a small file share like Google Drive, but super easy to pull things down from. So downloaded a config for rclone as well as an rclone.exe. Basically, the config just has the credentials, so that way I can authenticate to where I'm stealing all the data off to. So pull all those down, and then you can see a series of commands. These are all the ones that I ran. So rclone config, make sure it worked. ls this mega share. This could be anything. It doesn't have to just be mega. I just kept it named as mega for simplicity's sake. Yeah, and then you can see I've run an rclone with copy and copied loot.zip up to that mega share, which is mega.nz. It's pretty popular amongst threat actors as they don't really get reported for things like that. They're real privacy focused. So once we copied that out, cleared up everything inside of public. So that would have been that rclone.exe, rclone.conf, as well as loot.zip. All of those got deleted. You probably still saw evidence of that because, for example, in the master file table, those entries are not going to be deleted or removed until they're overwritten. Until something takes that spot on disk, those entries are still going to be there. After that, after the exfiltration kind of completed, next steps for the threat actor is to make sure that you can't recover once they deploy ransomware. So you can see kind of emulated that here just by using this built-in vssadmin.exe and deleting all the volume shadow copies, which are pseudo backgrounds, like keeping track of all your changes. So deleting all those all of them quiet in the background, and then once those were deleted, use this. We didn't want to deploy actual ransomware because I wasn't sure if it would damage the range or not. So Empire. I don't remember who creates PS ransom. Basically, it's super simple encryption that you can also decrypt. So use this. It uses that .psr extension. And then we only encrypted the C null share, as well as the user's directory. But that was basically it. So after that, you'd have that ransom note in all the directories on all the different hosts, because we ran that on all of them. And that would be the extent of the attack. Any questions on kind of overall bit here? Right. If not, I'll go jump into some of these some of the questions that we had listed off. And if you participated, please, let me know where you had troubles with. If there's anything you want to see me go through, absolutely happy to do so. Basically, so going through some of these questions here, let me see. Yep. So starting off, kind of had them separated out into the different phases of the attack for all the questions. So, for example, with initial access, starts off with, what email does Kevin use? Kevin came forth, said he was phished. He uses workstation 02. Where should we start? He thinks he was phished. How can we make sure, I guess first off, if the user came to you and said that they were going to be phished or that they believe they got phished, what would be some of the first things you would go looking for?
Their email address.
Yeah, email's good. Yeah. I'm thinking any of their browser history, what sketchy sites did they visit? Did they visit totallylegit.ru, right? We want to go see those things. So browser history is a great place. Viewing all their login information is another good one because you want to see if they had any suspicious logins, things that don't add up to where they, I live in Colorado. If I'm having logins from Canada, unless it's known travel, I'm on PTO or something like that, we want to make sure we're tracking some of those things. A lot of threat actors nowadays, they're not always just as simple as, hey, don't make sure nobody's logging in from China. Don't get me wrong. You still want to make sure you're checking those things. But a lot of threat actors, including Volt Typhoon, they use compromised networking equipment from a lot of residential IP addresses. So most of the time, their C2 and what we tried to emulate with the Python C2 framework was that they use basically a whole botnet as their C2. So we only used like 3 IP addresses in there, but it'd be like I have a Fortinet at my home. If that got compromised, but I don't have any serious, I don't have anything really valuable on my home network. somebody might just be sitting there running code and using that as part of their C2 framework, or using that kind of as a proxy so that whatever their maliciousness they're doing, it looks like it's coming from my IP address and not from China, Russia, etc. Right? So, but anyways, for checking browser history, you had for this one, you pretty much had to check browser history to see what email Kevin actually used. Is anybody not familiar with that? Do you want me to run through how you would do that? So basically, you have a couple options. Pretty much everything that is a Chromium-based browser stores the information in SQLite databases. So there's a pretty popular tool, or at least the one I like to go to, is DB Browser for SQLite. So it's this here. And if I just go File Open, and go find, go to that directory real quick. It only takes a second if I don't get lost. All right, so I'm on the triage. Basically, they were just VHDX files, which you can just mount by double-clicking natively in Windows. Otherwise, I think in the future, we're just going to do raw zips with the full thing instead, because I know some people had problems getting them mounted. So let's go to Kevin's account. I think it said he used Chrome. Use Edge. So once you open the database, it gives you full structure, so what tables exist. But basically, what we really want to do is go to Browse Data, and then we have a couple different things here. There's downloads as well as URLs. So if we go look at the URLs, we can see all the URLs that Kevin had visited. You see all of the fun things. Is ChatGPT owned by China? Is it normal for my baby's poop to be green? Katy Perry? Are cyber jobs lit? Some bank simulator software. But in one of these, we can see when he visits the Gmail here, the actual email address is in the title. This is just like what you would see at the top of your browser when you're actually viewing it. So, yeah. Otherwise, when you want to see when they downloaded it, you can actually do the same thing. You can come here. Weirdly enough, the way that these browsers store the information is really odd. So like this start time, this is not an epoch timestamp. You'd have to, I think I have it listed in the notes here, where you can, you can use something like this epoch converter because it's a WebKit timestamp, not an epoch timestamp. So it's don't know why they decided to make it that way, but that's how it is. The other option is you can parse the MFT with MFT CMD, and basically, go look for anything in Kevin's download folder, and then you'll actually find the creation time of the file that he downloaded. But yeah, you can see he downloaded this invoice66.docum. It's basically a Windows document with macros enabled, hence the M. Cool. One other thing I put in here, because it didn't show up previously, or it didn't actually make it to production, but cool thing that I saw on a CTF previously that I at least wanted to include in here was anytime you're investigating a bit.ly link, if you put that plus in front of it, it actually shows you a bunch of metadata about it. So you can see where it goes and when it was created. So you can see I created this link all the way back in January. So, yeah, cool information. Otherwise, I guess, was there anything in particular that you guys struggled with, or I guess feedback, things we could go over together as almost like a learning experience for those of you that participated?
Come on, I know somebody has questions.
Yeah, I think we had like two or three people out of 14, 15 that participated that completed it. So, it could be totally broad. There's no dumb questions here. I'm trying to make this as realistic as possible. So I know there's plenty of things. Like I know some of these questions were a little bit difficult. So for example, one of the questions said there was a service that was used, but it wasn't used for persistence. It was used for privilege escalation. Basically, the way you could tell that was there was this malicious service that was started, but it wasn't running on a regular basis. It's not like it ran on boot. It was strictly set to on demand, so it was just created then ran the one time. That way, because every time your service runs, unless you configure it to specifically run as a user, it's going to run as system. And system's pretty important because at that point you're past UAC or user access control, and you have access to pretty much everything, including like dumping credentials with Mimikatz, things of that nature. How did you get the info to look so clean with the WebDB app? Yeah, so there are a couple different ways you could do this. Partially, this is just from experience. I know go browse data and then go to either downloads or URLs. It's like the big ones. Otherwise, there's actually a tool that I really love called Hindsight that I referenced in the notes. I used it at some previous organizations for basically automating pulling browser history off the host regularly, because you basically can point it at a directory and it would just parse all browser history and put it in one Excel sheet. So for example, if you have a host and you don't even know what user downloaded this stuff, you can just point Hindsight at the C drive and it'll parse everything and put it inside of an Excel sheet. So it'll parse your Edge, your Chrome, everything. So it's pretty nice. It even parses like your cache and puts all that data in there too. I put a link to that here in GitHub. So if you don't like the SQLite DB browser, definitely check out Hindsight. See if you can get that working. It doesn't dump it in CSV though. It does dump it in Excel. Yeah, no problem. One other thing that you may have come across that may have been new to you is this idea of alternate data streams, or these zone identifiers that I mentioned. So basically the way alternate data streams work is, so how should I describe this? Every file on your system, or every, like you have your MFT record saying, basically all your data has to be stored somewhere for these, for all your files. When you download something from the internet, there's going to be a couple what we call alternate data streams that get stored there. So when you have the actual file, that is actually stored in $data. So it'll be file name, and then it's a colon, and then the data stream that's there. So the file name is just stored in that master file table. It says, hey, yeah, these files exist. And then there's a couple data streams that come with it, basically saying, where is that data actually stored on the disk? That's where this $data is going to come in. That's where the actual data is stored on your physical disk. One thing that gets written by default when you download things off of the internet, whether it's the internet or an intranet, right? All that stuff. It's going to be put into a separate alternate data stream that is called a zone identifier. And there's going to be a couple different zones that exist. The most common you'll see is going to be, I think this is like 1, 2, and 3. 3 is the internet, but you'll see the zone equals and then a number. And then but the most important part is that in that zone identifier, you'll see this host URL equals, and that shows you where it was actually downloaded from. So if you're ever investigating a malware infection, at your job and you want to know where this thing was downloaded from, definitely go search in and see if you can find that zone identifier alternate data stream for that, and you'll see where it's downloaded from. Let's see. Yeah, a lot of the stuff you can see in just it was a lot of sysmon related things, so process creation events. Yeah, and then the final one's the impact. If you made it that far, you really have to start digging into the PowerShell code, even if you do some AI assisted analysis to see, okay, what arguments were being passed, things of that nature, making sense of each of those. But you can see in there, yeah, there's an excluded files function that you'll see in the PowerShell script block logging. Yeah, I guess any other questions going through this? Any other things you want to see in the future? I know on one of the feedback forums we mentioned getting different types of logging. So that's in the works. I think we're going to do either firepower or ASA logs next time, so have some more network telemetry. And then we may do EDR potentially. We'll see. Opened the CTF on Sunday and immediately got intimidated. What would be the first steps to solve installing those recommended tools? Yeah, so number one things that I recommend, Eric Zimmerman tools is best way to parse all the Windows forensic artifacts. So those are fantastic. And it really just depends on some of the specific artifacts that you're looking for, right? And truthfully, everything's going to seem intimidating in cyber, but where I consider myself a generalist, and the internet is the best resource, right? So if you don't know how to do something, browser history, like that's absolutely okay. Know that all of us professionals out here are winging it to some extent. The question is at least I know I'm one of those guys that's willing to bang my head on the wall and I figure it out, right? And then you'll learn from experience. I know I really struggled with Python, for example, at first, but I had to really force myself to write things for Python, even if it felt inefficient. And now I think I'm pretty good at it. So it may be intimidating, but yeah, it's all part of the process. So.
Yeah, had a question in Meetup text from Mr. Floppy McDoppy asking, what is EDR?
Yeah. EDR is your endpoint detection and response tools. So that's something like CrowdStrike, SentinelOne, etc. It's basically running in that kernel space on your host, and it's gathering all that a bunch of extra telemetry that you probably similarly saw with something like sysmon. So all those process creates, file read, file writes, changes to registry keys. A lot of that telemetry is going to be logged inside of by your EDR. And ideally, you can get those ingested to whatever SIM solution you're using, so that way you can easily query all those logs for you.
SentinelOne sounds like a really cool product.
Donnie, if you're talking, your microphone is coming in extremely weak and broken.
No, that's just my air conditioning is insanely loud.
Oh, fair enough.
He's roasting. Yeah, let's see. I can show some of the kind of behind the scenes bits here. So basically, this was the deobfuscated Python code that we were using here. So it had a custom substitution cipher. Nothing really crazy. Just if it's an A, it replaces it with a Z, B with Y, etc. And then the biggest the number one thing it really does is it uses this always uses this user agent. So that would be a pretty good IOC in your environment. And then basically it just sends out a GET request with this request.get. So just HTTP GET request saying, hey, do you have any commands for me? And then if it does, it runs that command and then posts the results, or it sends a post request via HTTP with the results of the command as the body. And it does do a short little sandbox check where all it really does is look for this Wikipedia Hollywood. So it sends a GET request to that. And if the length of the page is over 100 characters, then it passes the check. Otherwise, it fails and it will exit the process. So, yeah. And then you can see in here, it actually runs that schedule tasks command, basically to see if this Versa scheduled task already exists, and if it doesn't, then it will run this function first time where it actually here's that command that you may have seen, scheduled task.exe, where it creates this versa.py, where it says, hey, we're going to run Python pointing at this malicious script, and that's going to run daily at 12 o'clock. Here's the obfuscated version. So basically this is doing a couple things, doing an XOR. Never seen this little kind of caret. That's what it does in Python. It's doing an XOR, so it's XORing it with the hex character 13. And then it's got this big thing of base 64, which is doing a base 64.decode. Here's the actual code for the macro. You may have not, I don't think you probably got that because it was just a triage package, not a full disk image. So basically had a malicious function called Hayukin, where it had this PowerShell command, and it just ran that and hid the console. So it would run in the background. Yep. And then it used several different IP addresses there. So you could see actually in the beginning of this one, it has a list of IPs, and it just alternates through the list. So you can even see where I commented out where I was testing it locally. Yeah.
I think wasn't one of the questions what are some good first steps to solving definitely getting familiar with some of the tools, because I was one of the guinea pigs for going through, and even though like I kind of helped set it up, I haven't really done any like sort of forensics work before, so going through and trying to figure it out, and trying to figure out the tools on the fly definitely made it a little bit harder. So just kind of getting familiar with them. One of them ended up being, it took me a while to realize that, what was it, the Timeline Explorer? It was basically just Excel, but like customized specifically for like looking at these types of files. And so once I figured that out, it was a lot easier. It was just kind of like a conceptual thing. Some of the event IDs, I think, that are pretty like recurring, knowing what, kind of have an idea of what those are, but if not, like anytime I see an event ID that like pops up a couple of times, I'm like, what's that? Google. That's always helpful. Just like little stuff like that. Like for me, it really was kind of, like I said, I didn't have any forensics experience, but going through and just anytime I saw something that was like, that is not familiar, I would ask one of the guys to lead me in the right direction, or just kind of like stumble my way through Google searches until I figured out, like got a foothold on what I thought I was looking for.
Yeah, pretty awesome insight there. Yeah, having cheat sheets is an absolute must, just because there is, especially with Windows, right? That's just one platform. Like, in your day job, you may end up coming across Linux and Mac and all that. So, pretty much have to have a cheat sheet. This guy, I really like him on YouTube. His name is 13 Cubed. I dropped a link in the meetup text. Basically, he has a full playlist running through just Windows forensics. It's couple hours, but it's probably some of the best free forensics training that you can get out there. Otherwise, it's really just making sure you have the cheat sheets. I think Cool Cat had previously shared some of the SANS posters that list off all the different forensic artifacts. So those are super helpful. There's some really good event log, kind of event ID registry key cheat sheets. There's some good scripts out there for detecting persistence, things of that nature. So it's really, admittedly, it probably sucks the first time you go through it. It's pretty overwhelming, but as you iteratively go through it, you kind of build your arsenal up, which is really what you want, because you don't want to get overwhelmed when, God forbid, a ransomware incident actually happened at your workplace and you're trying to figure out what's going on, right? There's already so much chaos going on that ideally you really want to be prepared, right? Don't really want that to be the first time you're looking at event logs, for example. So although it may be intimidating, there's genuinely no pressure. It's all learning, so that way we can take on the adversaries later.
Yeah, give you a really good example. Grab onto anything you can. Like, not everything's going to be like reinvent or like the new wheel or new sliced bread, but Barry gave me DB Explorer, and I was previously like doing pretty much everything in SQLite on command line, not by choice, just because I didn't realize that DB Explorer was a thing and existed. Which is cool if you're doing it by choice, but it's some things just make life a little bit easier when you're trying to do something, and that like made my life a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah, and definitely make sure you keep notes. I can't tell you how useful it is, even if, in 6 months you might go, how did I query? I was looking for a specific service, like maybe you're looking for a service that runs some specific executable. What's the command for that? I don't remember, but I had to do something similar 3-4 months ago. Let me go grab that command and I can repurpose it, right? So I keep all my forensic tools in a folder. Forensic tools, and pretty much every time I come across something, dumping it in there. So yeah, that and Obsidian, it's pretty sweet. So
Awesome.
yeah, definitely a learning curve. Will the scoreboard be updated with final results? Yeah, actually, everything that is on now is official. So actually, let me pull it up. So show it off. Yep. So this was our final scoreboard. We did have one other guy. You may have seen him on earlier. It's my buddy Charles. I forgot that I had previously exposed him to the malware samples that I had used for this, so decided to take him off the scoreboard. But he also did end up completing it, even though he had a little bit of an advantage. But yeah, this is our final one. So this was Jacob. Yeah. Going down the list, this was honestly pretty good. Yeah, you can see he totally rocketed this, like, no problem. So
Yeah, I think one of the I guess probably the most rewarding feedback for you guys who built this that I have seen is that it was very, very much like what people really saw in the real world. I saw a few people make that comment, so I think that's what I like to. That's what I call good CTF design. It's representative of the real world.
heck yeah. I know there's definitely times where I've never come across DNS as C2 at my day job, but I've come across it in CTFs. And then the first time I saw it in a real world engagement, it was like, holy cow, that's exfiltration over DNS. That's crazy. I saw that doing national.
I've seen this. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I know if you were down further on the list, don't feel too bad. I know that kind of second question really got quite a few people, but completely open to feedback. We want to try to keep this as realistic as possible moving forward, and we're going to keep doing these regularly, so that way you can keep building that skill set, keep building that tool set that you have. So that way we can give it back to the threat actors, right? But props to you guys. Thanks for participating. It was really loved putting it on and developing the playbook. If you have any ideas for things you want to see in the future, please let me know. We're in the process of developing our next red team playbook for this, so always open for new ideas.
See if we have some.
Oh yeah, and if any of you have never
chat.
seen, Empire, this is basically how it looks from this side. So this was the actual C2 address that we were using, 404securities.net. And then when we're actually interacting with the agents, there's a built-in file browser. This may or may not load. But you see all the previous tasks that have been ran. It shows you all that stuff. Gives you external IP addresses, what users you're running as, that nature. So
Is Empire's the one that shows the topography too, right?
I don't think so. I know you can get that in Havoc and Cobalt Strike, but I don't think this one shows that. It's really nice though, because it's got built-in obfuscation. Like we can run straight shell commands, or I know I mentioned PS ransom. It's literally as simple as coming here. You do encrypt, say what directories you want to encrypt, and if you are going to exfiltrate it via this same command, you can give it where you want to put it to, and then even specify keys there. Honestly, I really recommend that you do go set something up like this yourself. And like, for example, if I just go do some persistence things, right? So I do PowerShell registry, right? What does this actually do? Go run this on a host, run this command and see what it actually does. Go investigate it yourself. It's probably some of the best way that you can get super easy practice just by go run some of these things and see what that default behavior is. Absolutely will help you set it up. And funny enough, on one of the exams for my GSE, I actually recognized so this is if it will show it pretty or not. Sorry for the flashbang. Basically, this was the decoded base 64 that gets ran. And I use Empire. I totally love it because PowerShell is my shit. And on my GSE, they saw that they were using PowerShell because I recognized the end part here. I was like, whoa, they're using Empire. Awesome. Okay, and then I kind of know, all right, I know these modules work like X, Y, and Z, and kind of give me a leg up there. So yeah, it's cool stuff. It did work. Beacon is online. Yeah, Ray, you're totally right. It is a perishable skill set. That's why those having cheat sheets so you can jump back to it is, man. If it wasn't for some of those like 13 cubed and sans cheat sheets, I'd probably die.
Well, I see a couple people typing in chat. See what they have to say. Automation, Jacob. Automation, absolutely.
Well, I haven't used Dissect yet. Is it you? I take it you recommend it then.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, when you're dealing with like, 500, 600 gigabyte VHDXs or in the terabytes, and you don't want to load it up into FTK to check it out, or load it up into Xways. And Axiom generally takes too long for me when I usually like to get analysis done, like initial triage done within the day that I receive a collection or an image. So Dissect is just super, super good for that, because you can get these Siler-like collections with that acquire module. And usually it'll take, anywhere between, sometimes as fast as 5 minutes, could take up to an hour, depending on the size, but usually faster than loading it into something like Axiom, which takes a long time to process, or even Xways, where you'll have to manually recover all of those folders and artifact files yourself.
Yeah, definitely. You ever find yourself doing full like Plazo timelines?
No, not often, but internally they are still automated and used.
Gotcha.
But I don't produce them myself.
Yeah, same. I had an org where we used Time Sketch, which it was really nice because getting the full timeline's awesome, but take a couple hours to process one host.
Oh yeah,
It's not ideal.
totally. But yeah, I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, I love the references to Hayabusa chainsaw. Although there's a lot of really awesome tools out there that you can take a full repo of Sigma detection rules and just slap it across all those event logs and hopefully get some easy, quick wins.
Yeah, 100%. And then even, I don't hear a lot of people talking about it, but Takajo too, Yamato Security's other tool that they co-developed with Hayabusa, because you can get that JSON output, the JSON timeline output from Hayabusa, and you can stack things like services, logons, things like that, just to get a quick and dirty, list of TTPs and indicators.
I don't think I've heard of that. What would you say it was called?
Takajo, Takajo.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, super neat. And Yamato is also waiting to get another Oz engagement to test it, but they also have something going on for CloudTrail log analysis, which I'm hopeful for because that's a pain.
Yeah, definitely. What do you got any open source tools you recommend for like your M365 logs?
M365, I find a lot of places have internal tool sets to deal with things like that. Outside of that, I would say Invictus has a great, the extractor suite. I mean, even though the the MS Online service was deprecated, and some things are pretty terrible to pull through, like Microsoft Graph now, like MFA and password changes. It's still very, very serviceable when it comes to getting things like inbox rules, UALs, everything. And then after that, it's just Excel, Power BI, parse out all that JSON.
Yep. That's awesome. Yeah, I wanted to dig into the Dissect framework a couple years ago when it was released. Just I think it's like 2-3 years old now, right?
Yeah. We should be about 3 something. Yeah. 2.5, 3. It's definitely really good. It came out when I was working research and development at a forensic tool developer company, unnamed.
Nice.
And it's great seeing how they handle things like that as well. Their parsing libraries are really, really nice to work with too, on like an API level.
Does that require an agent running on the endpoint, kind of like Velociraptor?
So when it comes to like having the agent, really, if you're doing a live collection of a system, I haven't done that before because we use proprietary collection stuff. But when we grab images, all you need is the pip module set up for Dissect for Acquire to work.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's great, super lightweight.
Well, sweet. Yeah, good stuff, man. Did anybody else have any questions on the CTF or defer stuff related? Yeah, he's hex 4A. Yeah, the moment I saw that you did it in like an hour, I was like, this guy does this for a day job. I can fucking tell.
And as soon as as soon as I saw it, it was an actual forensic CTF and not find this crazy niche TCP or IOC. Like yeah, it was great. Had a lot of fun with this.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. Next
When is
CTF,
the next CTF?
we're going to do another one for DEF CON, which will still have some logs. It's not going to quite be defer focused, but we plan on doing at least one more before the end of the year, potentially two. We'll see how it goes. So next, I think our next CTF, we're aiming for about October timeframe. And we'll still be doing a certification for that one as well. If you want more similar practice, I know Hack the Box recently, or it may have been, I think like last year, they released some challenges they call blocks, which are all blue team focused, which are pretty similar, but I mean, they're not full enterprise, compromises like this. They're much more focused of like, hey, here, we're going to give you this auth log and for somebody brute forced SSH or something like that, and you answer a bunch of questions about it. But it is totally another way to kind of that defer world. GXFE and GXFA. GXFE was actually way straightforward. That one was probably the easiest. GXFA was pretty tough. That one felt like a real world IR engagement for sure. There was a lot of nuances to it where it's like, this artifact doesn't necessarily mean that this executed, but I can see that it was here. Is that enough for this question? I don't know. That one was the hardest, I think.
Good old shim cache.
Yeah, man. I also did the GXIH and GXPT for that one, and those ones actually weren't that bad. Tons and tons of pivoting, lots of multiple hops, but there was no like defense evasion, so I didn't have to like customize any payloads to get around like AV stuff, so really wasn't too terrible.
Well, hey everybody, if nobody else has any additional questions about the CTF, I'm going to go ahead and end tonight's stream. So, going once, twice, and sold. Well, thanks everybody for coming tonight. We're going to go ahead and stop the stream.